The human brain is driven by emotion. Emotions have primacy in our brains. Nothing else matters as much as emotion to our brain. And so if you want people's attention, you want people's energy, you want people to make good decisions, you want people to kind of step forward, you need emotions.
Hey, it's Nikki, Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast-paced, storytelling, action item-rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it.
Hey, it's Nikki back on Gut Plus Science. So let's be honest, employee engagement numbers, they continue to look the same year after year. We see the reports. They're not moving in the direction that would reflect all the great work that it seems like we're all doing, and we want that to change. So for more than a decade, the statistics have hovered in that same range. And leaders, we keep pouring this time, energy into things like surveys and dashboards and programs, and they look and sound really good, but they're not shifting the dial. And I'd love to dive in today on something that I think is a game changer here that could really help. Engagement is not just a metric. Metrics are important. Engagement is emotional. And my guest today, Joshua Freedman, he has built his career helping leaders understand the human side of work through emotional intelligence. You'll hear us say EQ throughout the episode as well to reference emotional intelligence. As the CEO of 6 Seconds and the author of the upcoming book, Emotion Rules, he's passionate about metrics, but he argues the only ones that truly matter are the meaningful ones, measuring those things that actually connect to how people feel. And then that leads to performance. How we feel leads to then our outcomes and the actions we take. In our conversation today, we'll explore what happens when we keep trying to measure engagement without addressing the emotions, whether leaders can really influence how people feel at work, and how we can bring love and humanity back into business without crossing boundaries. So Joshua, you've dedicated your career to this intersection of metrics and emotion, and got some secret sauce stuff here. What drew you to this work around emotional intelligence in your mission?
And there's the kind of polished businessy answer and the real human answer. I think you want the latter.
Let's go for number 2.
I was bad at it. I struggled with it. I found emotions really confusing and overwhelming. And as a result, I started to get curious. How does this stuff work? How can I get better at this? How can I not be so uncomfortable or even afraid of emotions? And I found there is a logic to feelings, and we can make sense of them, and we can measure them, and we can really work with them. But it takes a different approach.
And this conversation topic is so important right now. So you said I was bad at this in the past, and I learned through failing forward, right? And there's many of us that have the opportunity to get better and can always get better. We never arrive, right? We always have to keep at it. Why do you believe that this conversation is more important today than ever?
I think if we look out the window, or we look at the headlines, we look at social media, we see a lot of turmoil in the world. Our employees, our colleagues, our family members, ourselves are showing up carrying that. And I found something very alarming looking at over 1 million data points on emotional intelligence assessments, that we're in a global emotional recession. And across 169 countries, we've had this prolonged contraction in emotional intelligence. And we're seeing the impact of that in the way people communicate, the way they relate, burnout levels, loneliness levels, volatility, and it's attacks on every human interaction. And so when you are at work today, people are coming in carrying a level of emotional mess that you're going to be dealing with, and it's going to be higher than it was 5 years ago. That tax has gone up. And so even if you were doing a pretty good job 5 years ago, if you're at the same level now, you're behind. And I'm sorry to say that it's getting harder and more urgent. And that's really, I mean, that's keeping me up at night.
I think you said that so well. It is definitely getting more urgent and definitely harder through that urgency. And so wherever you're at right now as a listener, let's just, embrace where we are right now. We can only meet ourselves where we are right now to be able to take and apply this to move forward. And I'm so much looking forward to digging in. I loved our prep call and I'm like, I am ready to learn here. So when you say engagement is emotional, so many times we talk about engagement as surveys and metrics, and it's just very much the data. Talk about what that looks like, engagement being emotional, and also where measurement ties in to be very helpful in that too.
Sure. So sometimes people look at things like, do you like the snacks that we have in the break room? And think that that's going to be a proxy for or an indicator of engagement. I use the metaphor of the iceberg, and above the waterline are the sort of surface things, the behavior things, the visible things. Those things are easier to talk about and they're easier to measure. So a lot of organizational data, a lot of dashboards focus on what's easy to measure. I was talking with a CHRO of a huge organization recently, and he was saying, I'm not seeing any correlation between our performance metrics and the bonuses that people are giving their team members. It's like, okay, we have this massive disconnect. Somehow this number has become performative and we're not actually using it. And I would say in a lot of organizations, people are trying to measure stuff. They're trying to kind of get to, like, we need to really put people on the dashboard. We really need to get to, like, unlock this piece of performance. And the way we do it is by making that visible. But if we're not measuring what's actually, like, what we're really trying to measure. So what I got interested in was, how do we kind of go deeper under the waterline into emotions like trust. Trust is an emotion. And when people feel trust, they are willing to take more risks. They're more open. They're willing to try different things. I think the worst business advice ever is leave emotions out of it. Right? And what has happened is, in lots of companies, you leave emotions out of it. So you don't have trust. You don't have wonder. You don't have delight. You don't have love. You don't have care. You don't have commitment. And as a result, you don't have connection. You don't have innovation. You don't have people really giving their heart and energy to their work. So the simple formula that we use at 6 Seconds from my third book is emotions drive people, people drive performance. And I think in that there's two big pivots. One is emotions are actually something real. And it's sort of obvious, but I think a lot of times in organizational life, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, let's just talk about this practical stuff. Okay, let's get real. The human brain is driven by emotion. Emotions have primacy in our brains. Nothing else matters as much as emotion to our brain. And so if you want people's attention, you want people's energy, you want people to make good decisions, you want people to kind of step forward, you need emotions. And then people drive performance. I think a lot of corporate life in the last 100 years has kind of tried to move away from that and to say systems will drive performance. When we use terms like roles instead of people, taking this kind of mechanistic worldview and trying to build organizational systems as if they're disconnected from the human beings that inhabit and drive and live them. But it doesn't work. I mean, unless you're satisfied with 22% engagement.
And I don't think anyone here listening to this show is satisfied with that. We're here because we want to see the change. And I think understanding for all of us, I think we do understand, but let's understand further that yes, we can actually influence how people feel at work as a leader. And we have to unlearn things that maybe we don't loudly believe anymore. Maybe we do loudly believe, but they're still there a little bit, like, oh, leave the emotions at the door, or that's out of my control. That's not what we do here. We have to unlearn whatever level that we're at that's kind of holding us back from truly embracing emotions at work. I think that is a big shift. And wherever you're at on the spectrum, just understanding where are you and working your way towards, yes, we as the leaders can lead the change by embracing that human and the human emotion. And systems matter and metrics matter and all those things still matter. But it's like the nucleus is the emotion, you know? Talk a little bit more about the unlearning component and anything else you want to share there?
Well, I think you're touching on something really crucial, which is a lot of organizational leaders, even at very, very senior levels, I think at some level they don't really believe that they can change the culture, or they don't really believe that that's their job. And I think that as we think about culture, it's something that you can design and plan. You can't optimize for everything. And thinking about what is your strategy, how do you create value, and then what is the culture that's aligned with that? And then how do you show up in a way that reinforces what you want to reinforce? So, for example, let's say you really want innovation that's central to your value proposition as an organization. That means you need a culture that is risk-taking and problem-solving and trying stuff out. And if you have senior leaders who every day are saying, that was wrong, that was a mistake, don't do that again. Oh, stop taking so many risks. Maybe not saying it out loud, but showing that, they're reinforcing the wrong culture. And you can't have both a culture of compliance and a culture of innovation and risk-taking. So you need to choose which of these things are we going to prioritize for the next couple of years in our culture. Here's our value creation goal. Here's the culture that will support that. Here's what has to be happening in the way we are interacting ourselves in order to reinforce and support that. And I love the phrase from Disney, everything speaks. And this idea, it's like, this is why at Disney, even backstage, they made the doorknobs custom and the light switches custom. And you walk into Disney World or Disneyland and you'll see cracks in the pavement. They were put there. Because all these small things are signals. They reinforce something. They tell us a story that's mostly emotional. And that shapes our experience. So everything speaks. Every way that you walk into a meeting, every interaction you have. And as senior leaders, what we can see in the neuroscience is that you're changing people's brains just by how you walk in the room. So paying attention to what's happening inside, it's, I would say, less about what you do and more about how you do what you do. Who are you being? Are you being somebody who's open and creative and listening and engaged? That sends a particular ripple in your organization. And if, 3, 4, 5, 10 of you are sending the same ripple, you're going to shape culture.
Okay, let's dive into some examples here to really bring this to life. I'm going to start with a basic one, and then I want to share some more just to give more color to this. So a leader that's listening or watching right now, and they're like, engagement is emotional. Okay, is this like, oh, we're all a family here, and that's what we say? Is that what it is? And I want to come back to that because I want to go deeper. So what does it really look like? And then to your point on everything speaks, right? How we walk in the room, our posture, things like that. So here's the basic example. You're sitting in a meeting, you've prepared for it with a direct report, and your top question, your first one, is around checking in on a past life event topic. So it's circling back on something that's important to them, their personal life. And then we've got a couple of topics that we had on our agenda already laid out. And then at the end, we're going to have like this surprise recognition topic. Okay. It's a really good agenda. But during the meeting, the leader has that really good agenda and all the questions, but regularly looking down at their phone. Right? And you crafted such a wonderful agenda, and you even added in some surprises, and you made sure that they know that you care about that thing that matters to them, their dog that was struggling, and you're checking back in, and you're going to tell them how great work they did with specifics, but you're constantly checking your phone, right? That's an example of like all the things, or check the box, right? But the emotional connection disconnected because of that, right?
Yeah. So again, it's not just what you're doing, but how you are doing it. And I think that we get so connected with what we are doing, we often lose sight of that, realizing how. And I'll give you another example. Good morning, Nikki. Right? I said good morning. Like, why didn't you like it? Why didn't you smile when I said good morning?
Womp womp.
Well,
Yes. Yes. Well, I think we're getting it here for some that may hear it in terms. Engagement is emotional. I think those are great examples to help all of us to be on the same page with where we're going. Let's lean into a talk track that is said a lot at work. We're family here. And I'm going to use the real loud example is, when people say, oh, of course we have core values. Didn't you see them on the wall when you came in? Or we have a page on our website. Very similar to a way that we're family here could be, it's just a talk track, right? Like, but what really, I don't even know the core values. I want to lean into this work is family, the paradox there. I know you have a lot to share about that and how we really can do that well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The president of 6 Seconds, my boss, will frequently tell people, I love you. Joe will be talking on the phone and she'll get off the phone. I love you. Bye. And that's such a weird thing in workplaces, right? In my new book, I talked about her. Years ago, we were working on our theory of change and how change happens. And I wrote a book about change. And she said, I love people into change. Like, what does that mean? And she said, I see the potential in them and I love that potential. And I connect with that and they feel it and they feel drawn to that. And I have experienced it myself, Nikki, where she has seen in me things that I couldn't see in myself. And I want to do better. I want to be better. I feel the engagement. At the same time, I was just talking to one of my colleagues who's struggling with interaction at work. And what I heard him say, not in these words, but what I heard him say is, this would be a lot easier if I didn't care. So I feel like there's this paradox where on the one hand, if we don't care, it's more transactional. We get to go in that mechanistic mode, just leave emotions out of it. Like, let's just use some AI bots and, have an AI manage the AI bots and we don't have to deal with all this messy people stuff. And on the other hand, that doesn't create the spark. So I guess what I'm saying is, if we want to really unleash what people uniquely bring, we have to be able to step into that complexity to some degree. And no, I don't think work is family. They are different. And I think it's a mistake to kind of use that phrase because, well, a whole lot of reasons. But I was working with a COO who was having to do a big reduction in force, and he was sobbing. We just spent most of our coaching session just both sitting there crying. He was sobbing because he cared so much about the people that he was having to fire. And I just kept saying to him, this is such a good thing. It's such a good thing you care this much. And even though it's terrible, and it's always like this, right? Like, you have to fire people in the middle of economic downturns. And so that it's going to be hard for them. And it's like, That's one of the most painful things. But his genuine caring shaped the culture, and he did the reduction in force. And, there were some challenges, but by and large, people were just really appreciative of him and honored his courage and directness and clarity and commitment to them. And they knew that he cared about them as human beings, even though he was firing them. And if you can achieve that, my goodness, that is a huge achievement. You think about what that does for everybody in the organization and how much commitment you unleash, when you're going to the next step. And they did. And they bounced back way quicker than the industry average after that recession.
Wow. Going back to this, we're family here. I think, we all get to discern how we use that when done authentically. I've always steered away from that verbiage, but if someone on my team says that, I correct them. I mean, that's theirs to say it that way. I think something that came up for me is this treating people like family level caring. And if it is that term works for you, then use it. But the core for me is building a workplace and a team community. Because when you think community and whatever word and whatever, but authentically, is it this place that people want to come to, that others truly ask them about things that matter to them and help them through the ups and the downs and all that. I mean, that's family level care, like the amazing leader you were talking to through the reduction in force and his level of care, whether or not he called his, team members family, it's that level of the way he cares, obviously, right?
Yeah. So again, the tip of the iceberg versus the heart of the iceberg. And I would say I've had feedback from people like, you're not that warm. I mean, I think I can be, but I'm very task focused, and I'm often, I'm kind of introverted. And so sometimes I'm not that warm. Sometimes I'm not that social. I'm not, like, oh yeah, let's go have a drink. Like, that's not me. But finding what's authentically my way of caring, my way of connecting that people feel, and I feel.
That's it. That's it right there. It's that you authentically feel that you're pouring into someone else in a way that is you, and how you build relationships, and that person feels seen, heard, valued by you. Yeah, so good. So good. You were talking earlier about love, which I found interesting. So you're the CEO, and then you said, my boss, the president. I love how titles, by the way, aren't always the way that everybody sees what I found it. It stuck out to me. So she's like, the president, my boss, and that she says, I love you. And we had talked about this on another call. And I just found it, I think there's a way through that authentic way that it can be done so well. And people feel like, oh, family level care, right? So one side of it, I'd love for you to talk about that. Just love at work, but also just this, the way like title shifts. And I think it's a good challenge for people,
Well, she and I are the co-founders. We started 6 Seconds 28 years ago. I had already been working for her for 5 years, and now she's in her late 80s. And she's just an incredible mentor and human being. So when I say she's my boss, and she's the chairman of the board, but I see her as somebody, who I look up to, as if I'm making a decision and I go, ooh, Annabelle's not going to like this decision, then I know I'm doing something wrong.
So love at work. I think that, I'm sure listeners right now, that just brings up different emotions for people, right? How do you help people work through that? Like, what is it? What does that mean? Where's the boundaries? Why does the uncomfortable part come up for people? Talk about love at work.
I usually just use the word care because love is so loaded in our culture. The ancient Greeks had a good way to do this, right? They had different words for love. And the kind of deep care where you genuinely feel like you matter to me. And you know that at a visceral level. In our research on organizational trust, there's a couple different ingredients that we found really make trust work. And one of them is care. I'll tell you a tiny story. Way back, I was a teacher and I taught 12, 13-year-old kids, which was a whole long drama story. I found it really fun in my early 20s. But I had this experience where we did a ropes course and I was tied to a bench, literally. And I'm talking to this kid that's 20 feet in the air, attached to the rope that I'm holding. And that was really powerful teaching for me because it's hard to communicate, right? There's 20 feet. I'm like kind of raising my voice to communicate. And what I found is my level of impatience communicated very loudly to them. When they stood in front of me and I'm like, look, I'm here with you. You got this. And I meant it. They knew it even when they were 20 feet in the air and they were crying and scared. And I got to do that for a few years. And it was such an amazing training for me about trust and the connection with trust. And like, okay, literally I have you, like your life is in my hand, but that's not what actually matters to you right now. What matters to you is, do you feel that I care about you? Do you feel that I'm there with you? Do you feel that I'm supporting your goals and your growth versus trying to make you do something I want you to do? So there's just a lot there about autonomy and about connection. And, you do that a few hundred times and you're like, wow, I really understand something about what allows people to go beyond their limits. And for me, the big question of leadership is, are people going to be better off with you in the room or without you in the room? Are you actually adding value? Are there going to be results are going to be better than the sum of the parts? And if you're not kind of catalyzing some secret sauce, some mojo, right, that's beyond what all these great people can do by themselves, like save the company some money and go do something else. So like our value that we're creating as leaders is not in the, number of boxes that we check. It's in what we catalyze in people. And the way we catalyze that is partly through our experience and our logic and our business acumen and our savvy, but mostly it's relational and emotional.
I really enjoy all of this, and I think it would be helpful to break down more examples of what love looks like at work or what care looks like in action. You'd mentioned your boss, your co-founder, the president says, I love you. And that's for maybe a small percentage of people that works because of the dynamics, right? Like it couldn't be something that we could say as an action item, right? For someone to take, and that's the way to do caring leadership. Sometimes it will in the right workplace team context. And then there's other things like, and these are the examples, I want to just kind of bounce on these to help others. A leader who hears a team member's workload concerns, maybe because they have a challenging family situation or just they're overwhelmed, and the leader reprioritizes projects, hires extra support to, I heard you, like I'm going to help, maybe even steps in to do that. Maybe an example of a leader that publicly thanks a team member on a team meeting or on a Slack or Teams or something for a creative solution that saved a client project, not just like working hard or getting a deal done,
Well, I would just add, this is a great example of how a script isn't really the right tool. Because some people really don't like being praised in public, right? And so for that person, you need to know that person well enough to know they're going to actually appreciate this.
So important.
And, are you doing it to perform? Are you doing it so it looks like you're doing it? Or are you doing it because you want to have a particular impact? And understanding people well enough, that I think is really where we return to this idea. This is a human process, not a script.
Yeah. I think the first thing that came to mind when you shared that challenge, maybe they don't want public recognition, is like the book, The 5 Love Languages. There's different tools. Yeah, different tools out there that help us understand. And that's important to, first of all, understand how that person ticks and what matters to them before applying, this particular example. And it's not going to work for everybody on your team. But I think, to your point, you got to know your people. And then the examples of care, that's one of them. Know your people.
And know the people who know the people. Yeah. Right? Because I know there are a lot of things I don't notice. Right? But because I have that self-awareness, I'm able to say to somebody, hey, what do you think this person would like? Right? And that can help me by, being aware of my own limits and having good allies who see things that I don't see.
I have I have many examples, but I'm thinking of people I know that I admire that are leaders that I look up to, and stories to share some of these. Here's another one. And I try so hard to adopt these ones that I have watched others that I look up to. This is one. Whenever a person on a team is no longer a fit, or maybe there's a reduction in force or whatever that might be, feeling compelled or wanting to be part of their journey until the next thing. I personally thrive in connecting people, so I enjoy being part of, like, let me help you. That's not everybody's strength, or, everybody has their gifts. For me, I learned that from someone that sometimes we don't want to force fit, right? Ever. Square peg, round hole. This isn't working. You're not thriving here. We see a better future for you. How do I help you on your journey to get to that next best place? It's not going to benefit me anyway here, right? But I find much fulfillment in helping them to be able to get to that next place and play my strengths as a connector. But it's not for my workplace, right? I'm not going to get paid a referral fee. I love that about a lady that I know named Marcia, and I have taken that on for myself. Any other examples, just so people can kind of see care in action?
I think a place where we all get to practice with this is when things fall short. So when there's, we didn't hit our number, how do we communicate about that? And how do we react to it? And one of the things that I say to my team is the direction is more important than speed. So I don't mind if we didn't hit our goal. Are we moving in the right direction? Did we learn something? Are we going to do things better as a result of this? When somebody makes a mistake, do we focus on what they did wrong, or do we focus on what they learned and what they're going to do next time? And I think that, there's a million of those, unfortunately, in most weeks, right? Where something just didn't go the way we wanted it to. We didn't get the contract. We didn't get the number. We didn't get the win that we wanted. Every one of those is an opportunity to kind of step into care and say, okay, that wasn't good enough. How do we do it better next time? We can't do that again. What are we going to do differently? As opposed to, you screwed that up. And it's not to say, oh, that's fine. No, it's not fine. We can't keep losing our contracts, right? That's not going to work. But my focus is on the future and on how do we grow towards that future, as opposed to the blame.
That's really good. Two things came up for me there. One is through the failing forward opportunities, taking a growth-minded approach. We're in this together, and we recognize we can't keep doing this. We recognize that it's a challenge and work through what are we going to do differently so that this doesn't happen again? Love that and want to be that. And over here on this other side, let's say someone continues to make the same mistake. And as a loving, caring leader, at some points, we have to make those tough calls to say, this can't continue any longer. And love and care looks like we got to draw a boundary here, because what am I setting the tone for the rest of my team? And I want to help you in a place, the one that is continuing to fail at this. I want to help you get to a place that you're in a thriving role. Like, obviously this isn't working, right? So there's this, like, fine line there with where you draw a boundary,
So there's care for the individual, there's care for the group, and there's care for the work, right? And I have a mission that I deeply care about. And I have a large number of people that are involved in that work, and I deeply care about them. And so, yes, I have this individual care about this person, and I'm not going to put away the care for the mission and the care for the larger group because I care about that one individual. I need to hold both of those and balance all of that.
Yeah. Well, Joshua, you have this new book coming out. When is it coming out, by the way? Emotion Rules. It's really soon.
In which
In March. Okay. Tell us about Emotion Rules. And I definitely want to stay in touch because I want to be able to promote it when it comes out. But tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I wrote it because of this discovery of the emotional recession and looking at the level of distress and pain that people are in, and how it's trillions of dollars, but it's also trillions of painful days. And what I'm taking the risk to do in this book, I'm writing about things I've never written about before. This is my 8th book, but I'm going much deeper beyond emotional intelligence and into emotional wisdom, which is, how do you know what's important? How do you discern between these competing needs? How do you prioritize what really matters to you? How do you live that? And for me, that has been now a 30-year journey of trying to figure that out. And the notion that emotions help you know what really matters. So I get into first understanding emotions as data and the science of emotions, and then the intelligence of emotions and using them as something practical as a leader in creating change and creating results. And then, who do you really want to be? And how do emotions help you do that? And in the third part of the book, we're really getting into a spiritual domain. We're getting into looking at wisdom traditions from many different cultures, as well as the science, and understanding how does emotion actually guide you at a neurobiological level, at a social level, at a level beyond what the science can capture. And I have made the book super practical because that's just the kind of brain that I have. And so there's lots and lots of practices and things to try and experiment with in order to be more present, in order to have clearer, more powerful influence, but most of all, in order to be the person you really want to be.
I'm excited for your book, and congratulations on the upcoming launch, and can't wait to get my hands on it and read it and share it with others. Before we go, a couple things. Reach out directly to Joshua Freedman on LinkedIn. If you want to connect directly, we'll link that in the show notes. And then also you can go to 6seconds.org and learn more about all the things. It's incredible. The first time I got on your website, I was like, how have I not met 6 Seconds? So many good resources and lengthy history in emotional intelligence work and everything around what we're sharing today. You can get a free consultation with Joshua or one of his team members. So 6seconds.org will be linked in the show notes as well. And Joshua, before we go, we always do this quick lightning round where I put you on the spot, just real quick popcorn answers. The book that changed your life or recent read that you just really think is a powerful book for leaders.
The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu.
Yes. Yes. And Joshua, the place in the world that fills your soul.
I love hanging out in Italy. We have an office in Bologna, and it just feels so good to be there. And the pasta's amazing. So
Oh, yeah. Okay, one more question for you. How about a bucket list item that you've crossed off recently or is still on there? Because one day it'll be crossed off.
Well, I learned to scuba dive, and I'm just about to go on another trip where I'm going to get to do it again for the third time.
Oh, this was such a good episode today with Joshua Freedman around employee engagement is emotional. It's not just a metric. So here's my truth you can act on from my conversation today with Joshua. Joshua's research across 169 countries shows a decline in emotional intelligence, leading to higher burnout, loneliness, and volatility. And what worked 5 years ago isn't enough today. You know, the tax on emotional energy has risen. It's just out of control, right? And there's so much tension, which makes it more urgent in this world to lead with leaning into emotion and meeting people in that space. Leaders can and must influence emotions at work. So leaders often underestimate their role in shaping culture, every action, posture, how we, enter a room and communicate and listen. All of that speaks volumes. And we need to add in the emotional connection component, knowing that everything speaks, the smallest signals, and being consistent and being authentic. It reinforces the culture that we want to build. So got to be aware. Balancing care for people, work, and mission. So leaders face a paradox, deeply caring for individuals, but also for the larger team mission. And we have to remember that care and love and support for people also includes boundaries. We have to keep boundaries. Sometimes the most caring act is keeping those boundaries and holding us all accountable, like particularly when someone's not thriving in a role and helping them along the way, and we can care even through that hard. And love in the workplace is about genuine care, seeing people's potential and helping them rise to that. And love at work is powerful. And finally, I want to share Joshua's upcoming book, Emotion Rules. Please keep your eyes out for that and go pick it up when it's ready. It expands from emotional intelligence to emotional wisdom, which helps leaders discern what really matters, prioritize all the needs, and really be the propeller for growth. And includes a lot of tools and practices that help us take this and apply it to influence the connection and care that we want to have with people. So all in all, in this episode, it's just so chock full. Metrics do matter with engagement, but emotions are the nucleus, and leaders who embrace emotional intelligence and authentic care create that true engagement and sustainable performance. Go follow Joshua, look for his book, and thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next time.
We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.